Okay, we're back with Club Talk Football. I'm here with Jason Byrne of the Irish Sun. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm good, Shane. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Did you get to see much football over the weekend? God, there's so much GA on at the moment. It's hard to keep on top of it all.
Yeah, big time, man. Yeah, I saw the two games from Donegal. Just I saw St John's and Kilcar's are on the TV on Friday night, and then my own club didn't have a good day out at the office. Up in Marrigal against Gidor on Saturday. That game was streamed actually. Great service, I must say. I think the streaming is keeping a lot of people sane at the moment, given the cap on the crowds. So even though the result wasn't there, I really enjoyed the streaming, how they made things work up there for that one.
Okay, so we've an awful lot of county championships to run through, and I'm sure there are certain games and certain stories, plot lines we'll miss. So please, anyone comment in if there's anything that you think we should talk about in the next show. Armagh Harps, they beat St Peter's 221 to 211 in Armagh, obviously enough. Crossmaglen, they beat Silverbridge 310 to 1-8. The thing about this is that Ballymacnab had put 7 goals on Cross the week before in a league game, or just recently in a league game. So as far as Crossmaglen are concerned, at least they're back up on the horse again. Especially that defeat was at home also.
Yeah, of course. Like there was, when people saw that result in the league game last week, people were saying all sorts about Crossmaglen and they were done and things were a mess there. But they fairly came back with a vengeance. That's what clubs like that do to you. And the two Kernans were both on the goal scoring sheet as well, Aaron and Tony, I believe, and the two O'Neills, Oshin and Rayan were on fire as well. So, clubs like that just don't go away, Shane. And they still have acres of talent on the field. And it's another mark. Like when it's just a backlash, really, I'd say. It's hard to know what kind of team they're out the week before as well. I'm not really sure, but
Yeah.
those warm up league games, you can't really read much into them at all.
And just even a word on Ballymacnab, who had scored those 7 goals in Crossmaglen. We had kind of tipped them there at the tail end of last week in the preview show to beat Madden, and then they go and lose 216 to 212. So it really can be hard to tell with these league games, because you might have some county lads, you might be resting others, you might have injuries and whatever it might be. So it can be hard to tell. I'll just jump into the Cavan Championship there, because I think Castlerahan had it harder than they expected against Lacken, didn't they?
Yeah, they got a couple of late goals. Shane, I think Lacken got a goal and a few points without reply when it was in the melting pot, when there was about 15 minutes in the clock. But they got a couple of late goals, as far as I'm aware. They made hard work of it, and I think that was a bit of a flattering scoreline in the end, from what I'm hearing from the lads who were up at that one in Cavan.
Yeah, and absolutely, like Crosslock, they beat Larry United, Rammer beat Shercock, Gowna and Lavy drew. Cavan Gales, with Grode McKiernan on board this year, they battered Mullahorn 120 to 1-4, and Kingscourt beat Killygarry 213 to 17. Schlockneil in Derry, they beat Coleraine quite well. Glen beat O'Donovan Rossa, and John Mitzells drew with Swatra. So the Donegal Championship, like you had mentioned, some big games this weekend. I'll just kind of go through them in order, and you can kind of stop me as you see fit, or comment at the end of it. Nave Connell, of course, Ulster finalists last year, they beat Ardara 18 points to 5. Ardra, sorry for going phonetic. Sean McCool, they beat Dunlow by 111 to 11. Glenswilly beat Four Masters 214 to 113. Bundoran saw off Thurman by 4 points. Glenfinn beat St Nauls. St Michael's beat Milford. So what in particular stood out from the weekend in Donegal for you, other than your own hometown of Killybegs losing?
Well, what stood out for me, just when looking back in the machine, was I think Colin McFadden with 1-7 for St Michael's against Milford. They had a 3-point win. Michael's are a great club. They have a few old dogs for the hard road there. Christy Toy still going strong too. Martin McElhenney, Ireland winner with Donegal as well. I'm not sure if Martin was told at the weekend. I think he might be injured. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that was a significant result, and Michaels got Ardra in the next round of the round robin mix again. So they'll fancy getting another result there. And that Ardra Neil Connell game was a big local derby. Neil Connell just reiterating the upward trajectory they've been on in the last few years, and winning well against Ardra. So I think the likes of Ardra and my own club are facing relegation now, because they've both lost their opening 2 games, and my own club Killybegs got drawn against St Junans in the next round, and St Junans will be massively boosted by that draw they got at home against Kilcar, because they fell 7 points behind at one stage, and they could have easily won that game, but a mad moment from Niall O'Donnell late on. The Kilcar goalkeeper, Kevin Campbell, was putting the ball on the tee to take the kick out, and Niall came up and just booted the ball away, but he appeared to catch Kevin's glove as he done so, and he got a straight red from referee Jimmy White. So they'll be disappointed. Like they could have easily nipped that game, but there's a clear Big Four in Donegal. There's no secret about that, and the Big Four are fully expected to be the county semi-finalists this year again. You have Connell, St Eunan's, Kilcar, and Gweedore, of course. Who were Ulster champions the year before. Another club you must mention too is Glenfin. They're just up from intermediate. They beat our boys in the first round. And they had another good one there at the weekend. So they're on course to make a senior quarter final on the back of that 114 to 11 points win over St Noel. So that'll be huge for them. Frank McGlynn, an absolute Donegal icon, soldiering away for them too. So it'll be massive for them to make a senior quarter final on the back of just getting up from intermediate.
And of course, just to confirm the result between Killybegs and Gweedore, 3-13 to 6 points. So Oran McNeilish, who of course isn't playing with Donegal at the moment, fantastic talent. He scored a 5th minute penalty. Cian Mulligan and Darragh O'Beal, they also found the net. And in the final game, possibly the biggest of the lot, St Eunan's against Kilcar, 1-9 apiece. So Eunan's were actually 7 points behind in the second half and managed to scrape a draw. That's fairly significant.
Yeah, massive. Great result for them, as I said. Like, and they could have easily won it only for that moment of madness from Niall O'Donnell. Kilcar looked like they were going to cruise home at half time. They were running through them. Kilcar's running game was really frightening, and they had top gear, especially with Paddy and Stephen McBurty there. Ryan McHugh, Mark McHugh looks back to his best. Owen McHugh wasn't even on the field. I think he was injured. So when you consider they lost Andrew McLean in the second half for a second yellow, so that probably knocked them off course a wee bit. He's in the Donegal panel at the minute too, and he really is a rising star in Kilcar. So losing him probably just set them off balance a wee bit and allowed units to come back into it and manage a draw. Like I said, those two could easily be meeting again later on in the year, Shane, in a county final or a semi-final at least.
We were talking about Kilcar last week, with the McBurtys and the McHughes and plenty of other good footballers in the team. What should they be aiming for in an overall sense? I mean, they've got All-Ireland club talent, or certainly to be challenging for it as far as I can see.
Yeah, definitely. On paper, they've got a scary squad and they've got great depth as well. The thing is, and a lot of people do say this, that the Donegal Championship is just such a battle in itself that a lot of our clubs have struggled to go on and do anything at provincial level and beyond.
You made it hard for Naomh Connon last year when they had to do a replay 2 days before Ulster.
Yeah, that was tough. They eventually won on a Wednesday night, and they go out, I think it was out against Castlereagh then at the weekend, and they won comfortably, and that was testament to them, but they celebrated that county title by all means, and they celebrated it properly, and they were fully entitled to do so after all those grueling battles against Gweedore and all the nitty-gritty that went with it, about sledging. There was a lot of there's no love lost between those two clubs, and the same occurs with a lot of clubs in Donegal. So a lot of it's very, very hard to win the Donegal title back to back, and I think the Donegal championship in itself is just so taxing that when it comes to the later stages of the club championship, that they just fade and they don't get there. Even though Gweedore did give Corofin a good enough run for their money nearly 2 years ago when they got to the last four.
They sure did. The Kerry Club Championship, which obviously isn't the county championship, Austin Stacks, they beat Killarney Legion, Dinglesoft, Kilcummin, Cairns O'Rahilly beat Temple No, and Kenmare beat Dr. Crooks. If you want to see all the scorelines, they're on our game.ie underneath the video. In Leitrim, I believe Dennis Connaughton is back with St Mary's Kiltokert after leaving, and they beat Ballinamore by 19 points to 115. Fianna beat Ahawillan, Leitrim Gales, they beat Drumreilly, and Melvin Gales saw off Glencar, Manorhamilton. Now moving on to the Galway Championship, because you saw Corofin, I think the weekend before this, they beat off saw off Monavea Abbey 4-18 to 7 points, I believe. 47 games unbeaten in Galway. It's quite incredible. Now they've had a few replays and a few scares along the way, but that's something else.
Yeah, it's mad. When you look through that Corofin squad now, Shane, there's not many of them left who know what it's like to lose a game in the Galway Championship. Gary Seiss and Kieran McGrath, the two elder statesmen left in the panel now, those two remember what it's like to be on the losing side, but not many of the rest of them have. Consider the amount of new kids in the block they have. Like I saw them against Kilcar the week before, and the intermediate All Ireland champions against the senior All Ireland champions, and it was 7-17 to 11 points. It was like watching Barcelona or the Harlem Globetrotters. That second half was just ridiculous. They had 7 different goal scorers, and I think when they had their 5th goal scored, they brought on Ian Burke and Danny Burke, which is just like ridiculous. They don't have Kieran Fitzgerald this year. He's on board straight away as a selector, so the wheels just keep turning. Dara Self caught my eye that day against Kilcar, and I think he's a brother in Liam Self's. He got 1-7. So, surely that caught the eye of Warwick Joyce and the Galway management team as well, because John Dibbley was in the stand taking in the games that day too. So he was looking out for new talent. Hopefully if the inter-county season goes ahead in October, and Corofin just have that in spades. And I'd say if there was a club championship and a Club All Ireland series this year again, it would be very hard to back against them doing the 4 in a row.
Absolutely. And just to run through the goal scorers from that game, Colin Kelly hit a couple, and Dylan McHugh and Michael Farrer, they also found the net. And Carrarua beat St James's 15 points to 110. Then moving on into Longford, Mullinjacta against Colmcille. Now this is a big clash because Colmcille had dethroned Mullinjacta last year and had to come from 9 points to 2 down at half time to draw 11 points apiece here. Now Mullinjacta were without the McGivneys, 1 injured and 1 suspended. Keane Mackey apparently had run the show for Mullinjacta in the first half. I mean, what a signing he could be for Mullinjacta. But Paul McKeown got 2 late frees in injury time, and that set up the draw. So that's a big result there, 11 points apiece. Just to run through some of the other ones, Longford Slashers 2-16, Father Manning Gales 8 points without Porrick Gill, so obviously that would have hurt Gales. Dromard and St Mary's Granard drew 14 points to 111, and Killoe, they beat Clongish 14 points to 9. Now we move on to the Mayo Championship, because I know you had an eye on this. And just a couple of the results before we kind of stop and analyse a few of the games. Belmullet, they beat the Nail drew 2-8 to 14 points. Knockmore saw off Kiltane. Ballina Stephenites, they beat Claremorris by 10 points. Breaffy, they had a big win against Castlebar Mitchell, 16 points to 14. Balladreen, they beat Garrymore by a point. Ahamore beat Davits 18-12. Ballintubber beat Moy Davits well, and Westport saw off, or actually drew with Charlestown 2-10 apiece. So we'll just jump back to the Breaffy and Castlebar Mitchell's game. It actually means that all 4 teams in this group, which includes Westport and Charlestown, they're all in contention for the knockout stages going into the final round.
Yeah, it's an absolute belter. We'll grip that one. And Breaffy had to win in Castlebar yesterday to keep their hopes alive, because they lost to Westport in round 1. And I think Robbie Henley was well on point yesterday from the frees. Aidan O'Shea had a big game, and that's just a massive result for them. I think Patrick Durkin got sent off in the second half for Castlebar Mitchells too. So they went into the Lions' Den when the chips were down, and they got the result, in fairness to them. And that the Mayo Championship is just shaping up to be an absolute cracker, because there's so many different teams who could win it, and so many inter-county players on display for a lot of the clubs as well. And club football in Mayo is always just top class, and it's unfortunate for a lot of the Mayo clubs that they've come up against Corofin as well in recent years. But Killian O'Connor was back on song for Ballintubber too, and he got sent off in the first round for Ballintubber, so he'll be glad to get back on the score sheet and make amends from that as well. And I see Alan Dillon's still motoring well for Ballintubber too. So the Mayo Championship's a cracker. It always is, and it always throws up different things. So that group, as you mentioned, that's just a sheer group of death. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens there coming into the final rounds.
And you said about Ballintubber there and Killian O'Connor, so he got that red card rescinded during the week and allowed him to play. Now they probably would have beaten Moy Davits anyway because they were such heavy favourites. But do you think for a county board it's very hard to not rescind a red card for a player who's going to be a mainstay of your team later on in the season and is, a former captain?
Yeah, it probably is. It's an interesting one. By all means, he was proven innocent. I'm not sure what the incident entailed, but you can imagine, when it's a tough scenario like that, when it is one of your Hollywood players at inter-county level, that it probably is a bit more difficult to keep them on the hook if they're facing a disciplinary committee for something that happened in a club game. All right, yeah, definitely.
Did you have did you have any thoughts on that interview that Pádraig O'Hora did on Mayo GAA TV, the sort of one-word answers that we saw?
Oh, I thought it was class. If anyone's wondering what we're talking about, it's doing the rounds on Twitter. I thought Mike Finnerty was doing the questioning, and you could see Mike was just taken aback when he was getting all these responses from him. Like it was like a call out. You know, it was just pure class. God, if we got that honesty, I'd say the change rooms every weekend would be. Our game would be a lot easier to run in the media, you know. It was just class. If anyone hasn't seen it, check it out on Twitter.
Yeah, would it rival Ronnie O'Sullivan's interview that he did at the World Championships at the Crucible, where he was asked about the young players came through, and he said they might make half decent amateurs, but they're basically not great. Can't beat those sort of interviews.
You said that about Kula, didn't you? Never mind.
Hey, we'll move on from the Mayo Championship. Well, actually, a quick little word for the Westport and Charlestown game. A couple of late points from the Moran brothers, Mark and Colm, that earned Westport a deserved share of the spoils, I believe. So 2-10 apiece. It's funny, you could have a team that just, you know, through the bounce of a ball mightn't qualify from their group with this, you know, Westport, Charlestown, Castlebar and Breaffy, that if the ball bounced a different way, they might actually win the county championship, or they might not even get through their group.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? That group, as you said, it's just a complete group of death. And you know, Charlestown, a club who've been through so much this year, you know, they're probably have a lot of emotion behind them this year too. You know, when you think of everything that happened with them up in Castlereagh that time, one of their former players was gone down. So there's probably a lot of emotion behind them too, and you know, it's great to see them doing well in the hunt there. And they're a great club. Yeah,
quick word on the Monaghan Championship. Clontibbert and Maheracloon had a draw there, and I think everyone would have probably expected Clontibbert county champions Conor McManus on board to see off Maheracloon, and I'm sure Tommy Freeman is still lording it there. Ballybay, however, they beat Donaghmoyne fairly well, 420 to 8 points. Question I wanted to put to you was about the GPA proposal of the Inter-County Championship being shortened and being cut down to 23 weeks so that it would all be done by July, therefore giving more room for the clubs, which I would say is probably a secondary sort of motivation here, but more so cut down on the amount that's been asked of inter-county players. What are your thoughts on it? Because in general, a lot of people are happy to slam the GPA because they get this feeling that they're more interested in just the elite level of the game, and that's something that I've put to Paul Flynn in the past, and it's something that does concern me, because I'd ask what percentage of GAA players, club and inter-county, well, club especially, would actually want the GPA in its current guise to exist, and I'd say there's very, very few out there who see merits for them and their club career, you know, with this, you know, with money being pointed towards inter-county clubs, and even you could say like the top end of teams. I just don't know how many people actually benefit from their existence, but at least they're finally taking a proactive step here, not just waiting and sitting on their hands while decisions are being made, and I think this could help club players, which from my point of view is very important.
Yeah, you make a lot of very good points there, Shane. You know, the GPA, we love hammering them in the media. They've come out with a lot of daft statements in the last few years when, you know, they could have really taken leadership on certain issues. But, you know, credit where it's due on this one. They're suggesting that an inter-county window run from February through to July, and you'd imagine then that maybe before February, maybe December, January would be a window maybe for the third level college competitions. And then after July, you'd have your club competitions. It's being put to the Fixtures Review Task Force, which I think are due to meet on the 19th of August. So you'd imagine they'll heavily consider what's being proposed, like, and the final proposal that's thrown at them. But, like, you know, there's been a lot of talk about this GPA statement too, but the Club Players Association released an incredibly strong statement 2 weeks ago, issuing a 5-point plan for you know, an overhaul of the calendar and definitive windows set aside for club, inter-county and the college tournaments. And they're calling for a special congress to take place before the end of the year. You know, I think we've seen now that when the GA need to react to something quickly, like what has happened with the coronavirus pandemic, that they can react and can make things happen. That started by them allowing the management committee to have these special powers to bypass Congress. and come up with this unique inter-county format that we're going to see hopefully come October if games can go ahead. I know like it's built on a house of cards at the minute, like that could easily all come tumbling down. Hopefully it doesn't, but the Club Players Association have been banging this drum for 3 years, and I'm not sure what the relationship between the Club Players Association and the GPA is like, or how closely they work together, but surely they can pull now and both aim for the same result here from Croke Park. If they pull their resources and get together, I know they both represent different types of player. One is out for the club player and one's out for inter-county, but both sets of players want their definitive windows in the calendar, and at the end of the day, as Paul Flynn keeps saying to us, inter-county players are club players as well. That's where they started, that's where they're going to finish, and from a club player's point of view, I think it's about time that they get to know their slot in the calendar, when they're going to be playing. Kieran Donaghy was only saying this last week, like that's what he loves about the basketball. He knows for weeks in advance, when he's going to be playing, who they're playing, where it's going to be on, etc., etc. And if he was solely a basketball player, he can plan his holidays, he can plan family events, he can do this, that, and the other without having the question in the back of your head going, "Oh, it could be a match that weekend. Don't know till the week before." All this nonsense. It's gone on for far too long.
Absolutely, without question. Just to run through the last couple of county championships here, Tubbercurry, they beat Shamrock Gales. In Sligo, Turlestrane, who won a 3 in a row, they beat Calgary St. Joseph. Stromliffe, Ross's Point, beat St. Mary's by 9 points, and Cooler Strand Hill, they played Coolani Mulnabrina and won by 112 to 13 points. Westmeath, Gary Castle hammered Calry. St. Lomansoff, Shandonna, and Carlstown Kinnegad drew Calucan. In Wicklow, Dunlavin beat Newtown 310 to 10 points. Tinnahealy, they beat Bray Emmets by a goal, and Kiltegan, they beat Greystones 217 to 22 points after extra time. Then there was late drama as Rathnew saw off Blessington 220 to 219. This was after extra time also. David Boothman, he had a free to save Blessington in extra time of the battle, but it was waved wide and it looked a bit ropey at best on the video online. I'm not quite too sure if you saw it. But Jason, what do you see many other competitions such as Laois, Offaly and Kildare being postponed? Do you see, obviously you don't know the answer to that, but are many club competitions going to ultimately have to be cancelled for this year because of it? Because if it happens too close to the inter-county window when a county final is supposed to be played, all of a sudden, when do you actually play that final?
Yeah, there's no room for any leeway in the calendar at all, Shane. It's wait and see with the 3 counties that you mentioned, Laois, Offaly and Kildare, as to what happens. I know a lot of people in Offaly in particular are very unhappy that operations in their county have been shut down, and they've been pointing the finger at government and everyone else. And just in terms of their lives in general, they're basically back in lockdown for the next 2 weeks at least. So sport, everything has to stop. So it's just so difficult to know. I suppose from a club point of view, you don't have the knock-on issue of provincial club championships and All Ireland club championships because the buck just stops with your county finals this year. But there's no room for wiggling here at all. So it's just so hard to know what's going to happen. And if we have 3 counties in this situation already, who's to say that we're not going to have more? I really hope I'm wrong. It's the dread that's in the back of everybody's heads. For a lot of counties, it's been going off perfectly. It's been going off brilliantly, and everyone's delighted. Football's back, and 200 are getting into the games, but the rest are getting to see it on TV or on main streams, and it's what we have to make do with for now. It's all good and well giving out about the crowd situation, but when you see a schedule of games being suspended for at least a 2-week period, it's very, very worrying, and still very, very uncertain times for everyone. And the light that was there when games came back in July was just palpable. It was great to see, but we're really, really on thin ice here.
Absolutely brilliant stuff, Jason Byrne of the Irish Sun. Really appreciate you joining me, and we'll chat again soon.
Good man, Shane.